She shows interest, flirts, even opens up emotionally, and then suddenly she pulls back, goes quiet, acts distant. You didn't change, but her energy did, and you're left wondering, what just happened? Did I do something wrong, or is this just how women are? The answer is more complex than most men think. Women don't always push away the men they don't want. Sometimes they push away the ones they want the most out of fear, confusion, emotional overwhelm, or simply because they're not ready for what that connection stirs inside them. This video is not about blame, it's about understanding. Because when you confuse mixed signals with rejection, or worse, start chasing harder, you lose your frame, and once you lose your center, everything that once attracted her begins to collapse. So let's start here. Have you ever been close to a woman who pulled away just when things were getting real? Share your experience in the comments, and if you're ready to stop being confused by her signals and start seeing them clearly, type "read her calmly" below. Let's get into it. It's one of the most confusing things a man can experience. A woman shows interest, opens up, makes you feel seen, and then pulls back without warning. Cold texts, delayed replies, distant energy, and the first thought most men have is, "She must not be into me anymore." But that's not always true. Often what looks like disinterest is actually fear of vulnerability. When a woman starts to feel something real, something deeper than surface-level attraction, it can trigger internal alarms, especially if she's been hurt before. For her, connection doesn't just mean closeness, it means risk. Emotional vulnerability requires trust, and when that trust hasn't been fully established, either because of time, her past, or your energy, her default response may be to pull back. Not because you're doing something wrong, but because she doesn't know how to handle what's forming between you. This is where many men make a crucial mistake. They chase. They notice her shift and try to fix it, call more, text longer, ask what's wrong. But this only makes her feel more exposed because now, instead of space, she feels pressure. And that confirms her fear. This is already too much. A Stoic man does the opposite. He doesn't panic when a woman pulls back. He doesn't take it as rejection. He recognizes that discomfort around intimacy is common, and he respects her space without collapsing his own. He watches not to control, but to understand. Let's take an example. You have a great date. Deep talk, real eye contact, emotional spark. She texts you the next day, then goes quiet for 3. You want to ask, what happened? But instead, you wait. You stay still, not cold, just calm. When she returns, you don't interrogate. You simply resume, firm, centered, unshaken. Marcus Aurelius said, "Be tolerant with others and strict with yourself." Her pulling back isn't always about you. Sometimes it's about what your presence awakens in her. And if that awakening feels unsafe, she'll retreat. Not because she doesn't care, but because she cares more than she expected. So ask yourself, am I reacting to her silence or reading the reason behind it? A woman pulling back after connection isn't always rejecting you. Sometimes she's revealing exactly how much that connection matters. Attraction doesn't always feel safe. In fact, for many women, real desire can feel like losing control. She wants you, she thinks about you, she's drawn to your presence, but that very pull creates a quiet conflict inside her. The deeper the desire, the more she risks losing emotional balance, and so she resists it. This is what causes many women to behave in contradictory ways. Hot one day, cold the next. Close, then distant. She's not playing games, she's trying to regain control of something that now feels unpredictable. And often the easiest way to do that is to create distance, even from what she wants. Let's be clear, women value emotional self-control just as much as men, but the difference is when their desire threatens that control, when being around you makes them feel too open, too seen, too pulled in, they may retreat just to feel stable again. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a response to her own emotional intensity. Here's where most men lose the frame. They think if she's backing away, I must have done something wrong. And in trying to fix it, they overcompensate. More messages, more reassurance, more attention. But that only increases the intensity she was already trying to manage. So she pulls back harder. A Stoic man doesn't try to take away her discomfort. He gives her space to resolve it. He recognizes the conflict without entering it. He stays calm, unshaken, and most importantly, doesn't change his behavior to earn her closeness. He leads not by chasing, but by staying centered. Imagine this. She goes quiet after a deep conversation. You sense her withdrawal. You don't confront, you don't chase. You continue living, working, thinking clearly. When she re-engages, you welcome her without resentment or need. That balance is powerful. It tells her, you don't need her attention to stay solid. Seneca said, no man is free who is a slave to his emotions. And no man should let someone else's emotional turbulence pull him off his path. Her conflict is hers to resolve. Your strength is shown by how calmly you remain yourself in the midst of it. So ask yourself, am I trying to pull her closer or letting her return when she's ready? The man who doesn't try to control the outcome often becomes the very thing she trusts when her own emotions feel out of control. Not every emotional withdrawal is about you. In fact, some of the strongest pullbacks happen because of you. Because something about your presence triggers emotions she hasn't fully healed. You might be doing everything right, showing up, being steady, listening, caring, and yet she pulls away. Why? Because real connection wakes up old wounds. For many women, the deepest scars come from trust that was broken. Not by strangers, but by people they once felt safe with. A father who disappeared, a partner who lied, a friend who betrayed them at their most open. So now, when a man like you shows up and offers something genuine, it doesn't always feel good. It feels dangerous because it reminds her of what she lost before. This is why she may respond to your calmness with distance. Why your honesty may be met with silence. You're not doing anything wrong, but you've touched something in her that she hasn't processed. And in the absence of healing, safety feels suspicious, even threatening. Let's be real. Connection is vulnerability, and for someone who associates vulnerability with pain, the instinctive move is retreat. Not because she doesn't want the connection, but because she doesn't yet trust that she can survive it if it goes wrong again. Here's the mistake most men make. They assume her reaction is about their worth. They internalize her distance as rejection and start chasing, fixing, or withdrawing completely. But the Stoic does none of that. He understands that not everything that touches you is yours to carry. He doesn't take it personally. He doesn't press for answers. He allows her space to process while remaining centered himself. And that steadiness, that refusal to wobble in the face of emotional confusion, often becomes the very thing that builds trust over time. Think about this. If every man in her past reacted with need, jealousy, or anger, what do you think your calm presence shows her now? Something unfamiliar, something quietly powerful. It tells her, I can feel something real and you won't punish me for it. Seneca said, sometimes even to live is an act of courage. For someone who's been hurt before, loving again, fully, openly is a terrifying act. When you sense this in her, don't push. Don't demand her walls to fall. Just stay still long enough for her to realize you're not the threat. So ask yourself, is she pulling away because of me or because of what I represent? A man who listens beyond the surface doesn't just hold her attention. He helps her rebuild her sense of safety, not through pressure, but through presence. One of the hardest truths for many men to accept is this: a woman can be genuinely attracted to you and still not be ready for what you bring. She can desire your energy, your presence, even your leadership. But when it starts to move beyond surface-level connection, she hesitates. Not because you're lacking, but because she's not prepared to go deeper. Attraction is often immediate. It happens without effort, without permission. But emotional depth, that takes capacity. It takes emotional maturity, self-awareness, and a willingness to face parts of yourself you might prefer to avoid. Not everyone has that capacity, even if they crave the closeness. This is why some women feel overwhelmed when a man offers something grounded, something real, not a distraction, not a chase, but consistency. Depth requires her to bring more of herself to the table. And if she's used to surface-level validation, this new standard can feel confronting. Let's say you're steady, present, focused. You don't play games, you don't flinch. For a woman who's used to chaos, that stillness can feel foreign, uncomfortable, even intense. She's drawn in, but unsure. The deeper she feels pulled, the more resistance starts to build inside her. Here's where most men get confused. But I thought things were going well. And they were. The problem isn't the connection, it's the depth of the connection. When someone isn't ready for that, their natural defense mechanism is to create space, emotionally, physically, silently. A Stoic man doesn't chase to restore that closeness. He doesn't soften his strength to make her feel smaller. He stays rooted. He respects that attraction isn't a promise, and readiness isn't something you can force. He lets her come to terms with her own limits. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Don't be overheard complaining, not even to yourself." And when a woman walks away from something good, many men complain inwardly or outwardly. But the Stoic sees it clearly. If she's not ready, it's not rejection, it's misalignment, nothing more. Your job isn't to carry her into emotional depth. It's to show her what it feels like to be with a man who lives there. If she's not ready, she'll walk away. But if she ever comes back, it's not because you chased. It's because you stayed still long enough for her to find the courage to return on her own. So ask yourself, is she pulling back because she doesn't care, or because she's afraid of what caring too much will ask of her? The man who sees the difference doesn't lose peace over temporary distance. He knows what he offers, and he doesn't need to lower it just to keep someone close. Not all distance is emotional confusion. Sometimes a woman pulls back for a very specific reason, to regain emotional power. This isn't always manipulation. It's a response, conscious or unconscious, to feeling too exposed, too affected, or too emotionally invested too quickly. When a woman feels herself becoming vulnerable, she may worry about losing control, especially if she feels like you are more centered, more calm, more in control of the rhythm. In that dynamic, she might instinctively create space, not because she wants to end it, but because she wants to reset the balance. This is where emotional power dynamics come into play. If she feels you're less reactive, less needy, less easily moved, she may begin to feel emotionally behind. That feeling of imbalance can lead to retreat. Not because you did anything wrong, but because she now needs to feel that she holds some control again. Let's be clear, this isn't always toxic, it's human. People pull back when they feel overwhelmed. But for men, especially Stoic men, the challenge is to see it without reacting to it. When she distances herself to feel powerful again, and you chase, you confirm her fear, you were the one leaning more. Most men fall into this trap. The moment she withdraws, they double their effort. They ask questions, they offer more, they seek reassurance. What they don't realize is every attempt to close the space only gives her more psychological ground, and the deeper problem remains untouched. A Stoic man understands that balance is not created by effort, it's created by stability. He doesn't try to win back her attention, he simply maintains his frame. If she pulls back to feel in control, he lets her, without collapsing, without punishment, without pursuit. Epictetus said, "He who is not master of himself will always be a slave." And when a man needs emotional closeness to feel secure, he becomes easy to move, easy to test, easy to control. But the man who stays still, who doesn't flinch when closeness turns to distance, becomes unshakable. If and when she returns, she does so because you didn't chase the retreat. You didn't create more imbalance. You respected the space, not as rejection, but as a phase she needed to pass through. And that tells her one thing. You're not afraid of emotional power. You already own yours. So ask yourself, is her distance an ending or an attempt to shift the dynamic? Most of the time, it's the latter. And the man who sees it clearly doesn't react. He just stands where he is and lets her learn where real stability comes from. Mixed signals aren't always games. Often they're the result of fear, inner conflict, past wounds, or a struggle for emotional control. Understanding this doesn't make it easier, but it does make you wiser. The Stoic man doesn't respond with frustration. He responds with stillness. He doesn't need to decode everything just to see it clearly. If she pulls back, let her. If she tests, don't flinch. If she's confused, stay steady. Your presence should not depend on her closeness. Your frame should not collapse when hers becomes uncertain. Because the man who leads with emotional discipline earns far more than attraction. He earns trust. You don't have to fix her signals, you only have to make sure you're not sending mixed ones back. Be clear, be calm, be consistent. And remember, the right woman doesn't punish you for your stability. She finds peace in it. If this message resonated with where you are right now, type "stillness over reaction" in the comments. And if you're becoming the kind of man who reads signs without losing himself in them, subscribe to Valoris, where awareness builds power and presence speaks louder than pursuit.